Narrator's voice. The heart of a city is not found in its skyscrapers, nor in the roaring engines of its streets, but in the lives of the unseen, the forgotten, the ones who walk quietly, carrying stories heavier than gold. This is the story of one such soul, a woman the world overlooked, a mother the world erased, and a son who would one day discover the truth, that love, no matter how broken, no matter how delayed, is eternal. Her name was Margaret. Margaret was a maid. For decades, she lived in the shadows of grandeur, cleaning the marble floors of palaces she did not own, polishing silver cutlery she would never eat from, dusting chandeliers that glistened above lives far removed from hers. Every dawn, she would rise before the sun, her hands already aching before the day even began. She cooked meals she couldn't afford, pressed clothes finer than anything she'd ever wear, and smiled at children who weren't her own, while her own arms remained empty. But Margaret carried a secret, a truth no employer ever knew, a truth she locked deep within her heart. Years ago, when she was young, she had been forced into the cruelest choice a woman can make, a choice between survival and motherhood. Circumstances too harsh, too merciless, had torn her baby from her arms. Papers were signed, tears were shed, and her child was gone before she could even whisper his name. But though the world stripped her of him, her heart never let go. Every prayer she whispered at night ended with the same plea. God, let him be safe. Let him be happy. Let him know. His mother never forgot. And so for decades, Margaret served. She wiped away dust, but never the ache in her chest. She hid her sorrow behind quiet smiles. And in the privacy of her tiny servants' quarters, she lit a single candle each night and prayed for the boy she had lost. Meanwhile, far across the city, another life unfolded. His name was Marcus Wellington III. The world knew him as a genius entrepreneur, a billionaire mogul who had turned technology into an empire worth billions. His name was printed in glossy magazines, his face broadcasted across financial news. Women desired him, men envied him, and nations courted his investments. But beneath the tailored suits and lavish mansions, Marcus carried his own secret. For Marcus was an orphan. Adopted at a young age, he was raised in wealth, never knowing the story of where he truly came from. His adoptive parents gave him everything except the truth. And when a tragic car accident stole them away when Marcus was just 16, the questions of his past only deepened. Who were his real parents? Why was he given away? Did they ever think of him? The adoption records were sealed. Investigators hit dead ends. No amount of money could unlock the missing pieces. And so Marcus buried the emptiness under empire. He built skyscrapers of wealth to cover the hollow ground beneath his feet. He filled his life with noise, parties, and endless travel. But at night, standing alone in his penthouse overlooking the city, he felt it. The same gnawing ache Margaret carried miles away, a motherless void. And fate, in its quiet cruelty, brought them together. Marcus purchased a grand estate on the outskirts of the city. It was a mansion older than time itself, with towering ceilings, winding halls, and staff who catered to his every command. Among them was Margaret. To him, she was just another maid, a quiet, aging woman who moved like a shadow, polishing, cleaning, tending to corners of the mansion he rarely noticed. But to Margaret, the moment she laid eyes on Marcus, something inside her broke. His eyes, his smile, the tilt of his head when he listened. It was him, the child she had lost. She wanted to cry out, to fall to her knees and tell him, "My son, my boy, it's me, your mother." But fear gripped her throat. What if he rejected her? What if he laughed? What if he thought she was crazy? So she stayed silent. She continued her work. But every glass she polished, every room she cleaned, was filled with silent prayers for him. And when he walked past, she would steal glances, not as a maid admiring her employer, but as a mother memorizing her child. One evening, fate snapped its thread. Marcus had returned unexpectedly. His footsteps echoed down the marble corridor as he entered the grand library. And there, to his shock, he saw her, Margaret, kneeling by the fireplace, clutching one of his childhood photos. His voice thundered. "What are you doing in here?" Margaret dropped the frame, trembling. I'm sorry, sir, I was only—" "You were snooping in my private things?" His eyes burned with fury. To him, it was betrayal. To her, it was desperation. Tears welled in her eyes. I wasn't stealing. I wasn't... Please, you don't understand. I understand enough, Marcus snapped. You're fired. The word cut through her, chest like a blade. Fired, dismissed, cast out, again. She wanted to scream the truth. I am your mother. But the words froze. Instead, she bowed her head and whispered, Forgive me. And she left. Days passed. For Marcus, anger gave way to confusion. Something about her tears haunted him. Something about the way she looked at him, as if he were her entire world, gnawed at the back of his mind. So he ordered an investigation. Discreet, thorough. Who was this Margaret, really? And the truth came back like a thunderbolt. Her past, her adoption records, the child she lost, the timelines, the DNA. It was undeniable. Margaret was his mother. The woman he had dismissed, humiliated, thrown out like a servant, was the very woman who had prayed for him every night of her life. Marcus collapsed into silence. Guilt consumed him. How many times had he walked past her without knowing? How many times had she smiled at him with a mother's love he mistook for servitude? He found her again, not as an employer seeking a maid, but as a son searching for a mother. And when he stood before her, his voice broke. Forgive me, please, forgive me. Her eyes filled with tears. But they were not of anger. They were of relief. She reached for his face with trembling hands and whispered, My son. For the first time in decades, Margaret's arms held her child. And for the first time in his life, Marcus knew the warmth of a mother's embrace. But fate is a cruel storyteller. Not long after their reunion, Margaret fell ill. The years of labor, of sacrifice, had taken their toll. Her body grew weak, her strength fading. Marcus spared no expense. The best doctors, the finest treatments. Money could buy machines, medicine, time, but not eternity. As she lay in the hospital bed, her breaths shallow, Marcus sat beside her, clutching her hand like a lifeline. Stay with me, he begged. I can't lose you, not now. Her lips curved into a faint smile. You've given me more than I ever dreamed. You called me mother. That's all I ever wanted. No, Marcus wept. It's not enough. I want years with you. I want the time we lost. She brushed his cheek with trembling fingers. A mother doesn't live in years. She lives in her child. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I will be with you. And with those final words, she slipped away. The monitor flatlined. Silence filled the room. Marcus broke. The billionaire, the empire builder, the man who had conquered the world, fell apart like a child. His sobs filled the empty hallways, echoing into the night. Her funeral was small, humble, just as she would have wanted. A simple coffin, white lilies, and the quiet mourning of a son who had finally found and lost his mother. When Marcus stepped forward to speak, his voice trembled, but carried. My mother was not born into wealth. She never commanded power, but she possessed a strength greater than kings. She gave everything for me. And though the world saw her as a servant, to me, she was the greatest woman I will ever know. He placed a single white rose upon her grave. His hand lingered, and with tears streaming down his face, he whispered the words that had taken a lifetime to find. Goodbye, Mother. But this was not the end of their story, for love does not die. It transforms. Marcus carried her with him, not as a shadow, but as a legacy. He created foundations in her name, built homes for children without mothers, funded hospitals for the forgotten. Everywhere he went, her spirit guided him. And though the world remembered him as a billionaire, Marcus remembered himself as something else entirely. A son who had finally, miraculously found his mother. And in that truth, he discovered the greatest empire of all, not of money, not of power, but of love. Narrator's closing. So if you walk through the city one day and see a candle flickering quietly in the window of an old house, remember Margaret. Remember Marcus. And remember this. The world may forget the sacrifices of a mother, but a child never does.